right, boom, bam. We're live here. We're live here. All right. Let's check one thing. We'll get started in a minute. A couple checks and balances. We'll have a good episode tonight. All right, welcome. If you're new to the channel, put in what part of the country you do your remodeling in, what your specialty is: roofing, windows, siding. I'll make a comment. I think I can add that. Yeah, get started here in a second. Hope you all are having a good weekend. Get you ready to go for Monday. Getting your jobs under control. Start making some money. You work real hard to get the job. The least you can do is figure out how to now manage it, right? And it sounds silly. I mean, literally, when you think about how hard you run around town to get the job, it's crazy how then remodelers relax and coast and just lose money day and night by not managing it. So we'll get you there. What your specialty is. But yeah, if you're new, just let me know your specialty, what your niche is, and what part of the country you're in. Ask any questions you want. Typically what I do is I go live for about 12 minutes. After that 12 minutes, then we'll have a discussion, and we'll go from there. All right, here we go. Let me share my screen. If you want to see the notes, most nights I'll share it on YouTube. Every now and then there's a glitch, but tonight you can see the notes on, yeah, boom, there they are. They're live. Let me expand this. Make this a little bigger. We'll do 125%. All right, so here we go. Welcome. If you're new, just let me know where you're from. Otherwise, we'll get started. I'm going to give it one more minute. Got a couple people bouncing on and off. It's not always easy to tell how many people are or who specifically is on until you've been on for a few minutes. All right. So yeah, so we're talking remodeling. So why you're always behind schedule. Hey, Jay Allen, welcome. Thanks for showing up. Yeah, we're going to talk about job schedules and why you're behind. Or maybe you're not, but why most guys are. This was a big one for me. You don't realize how efficient you can be until someone lets you know that you're really not that efficient. You think you're being efficient. We all, until someone on the outside looks and critiques our day, then you start recognizing, damn, I didn't realize I was wasting that much time every day. A big one is going and getting materials. I can tell you that right now. I had one carpenter that I hired. He liked to go every day, midday. He liked to leave the job site and go, we got to get this. It's the only way we can finish today. And at first, I trusted him. I trusted his judgment. But when I noticed, I was like, you go every day. And then what I noticed is, in his mind, the job site was stressful, but running to the store to buy materials, that was easy for him. It was his escape. And that's what he liked doing, when he would just like to leave and just feel like I'm still working. So here's the thing. If you like getting materials, that's all fine and good, but understand that that's not where a business owner or a lead carpenter should be spending their time. And your crews shouldn't be spending their time running and getting materials every day either. Unless it's on the way to the job or on the way home for the next day, not during the middle. So let's talk about some things. You can You can sell a beautiful design, right? You land the perfect client. You're going to promise the dream remodel. But if that job starts running aground and the schedule starts falling apart and dragging out, and you're not adhering to the timelines, and the client was expecting you to be done for Thanksgiving, and now it's pushing up into Christmas and their kitchen's not ready, you are making an enemy. And there's going to be a lot of frustrated people that you can't get your stuff together and figure it out. And nor why weren't you able to anticipate all these issues, right? And your profit is gone, right? And this becomes the job from hell, the client from hell. And it didn't have to be that way. It really should never be that way. I'm not saying that things don't go wrong. I'm not saying that there aren't issues. But when you plan it poorly or don't plan at all, you are just lending yourself to more issues. And the biggest one is for you guys that are doing larger projects, if you're not getting all the materials ordered up front and having them on site before you start the job, then don't be curious why you can't keep a schedule, right? Because that's just not professional. You don't order and buy materials as the job goes, in my opinion, not if it's a kitchen or a bathroom. You have all of that stuff bought, delivered to the site or your warehouse, your garage, wherever, a storage unit, the homeowner's garage, the homeowner's basement, I don't care. But you don't start the job till you have everything that you need. Then you come in and do the demo. That's how you keep a job on schedule and on track. So let's break it down. Most remodelers, right? You don't finish late because you're lazy. You finish late because you just don't have a proper execution engine or game plan. Okay. You're just not doing the things that you should be doing. And it's because you don't think that you need to do it. You're like, I'll just get the materials as I go, because you run by the seat of your pants. Everything else, a schedule doesn't work that way. Not in remodeling. There's just too many variables, right? Even if you want to build a fence, you don't show up the first day and go, well, let me dig some holes. Then tomorrow I'll run and get the material. And then you find out that they don't have the material. So now it's like, well, I guess I can get half the posts. So I'll do that. Well, and then you're running another day. The next thing you know, a job that should have taken 2 days takes 4. Well, you didn't make money. If you did, you didn't make good money. And it's lazy, right? Plan every job to execute properly. Even if it's a fence, get all the material ordered ahead of time. Know that you have it all ready to go, or that your supplier has it all loaded and is delivering it at 7 a.m. and you're going to do your demo and you'll be ready to go by 9. Not always. Yeah, I mean, that's up to you. See, Stump, I don't know what kind of work you do, but if it's a kitchen or bath, I would highly encourage you to consider having everything up front, done, purchased, then you schedule and start the job. That's what selection sheets are for, and that lets homeowners know how important it is to make the selections. They don't drag out their decisions. Now, if it's a specific paint color, I can wait on that till the day we start demo, but that's about it. Even that we want done ahead of time. Now, I'm not saying it has to be ordered when the kitchen cabinets are going, but homeowners will delay, and that's going to cause you to delay, and it's your pocketbook, right? This is your profit. So in my opinion, if you're going to let the job get hung up and be delayed, you're just taking money out of your pocket when you had to work so hard to get the job in the first place. So if you found yourself ever losing control, blowing out your delivery timelines, right? Or what if your subs get frustrated? For those of you that use subcontractors, like I know for me, my electricians, my plumbers, my HVAC guys, they're running their own business. And they don't want to run out to my job to send 2 guys, let's say, and find out that we're not ready and that now it's going to be another delay or 2 because the wrong part came in, the part was delayed, right? Now I'm causing them to run their business inefficiently. That's going to impact how well they want to work with me in the future, right? A lot of guys think, hey, that's just business. That's remodeling. You shouldn't have gotten into the business if you didn't expect problems. No, I expect to deal with a professional. That's not the kind of problem that I should be experiencing if I'm working with a professional. You should have had all your shit together. That's a professional in remodeling. Now, Are you going to sometimes show up and a material is going to have a defect that you didn't notice, right? Sure, that kind of stuff happens. But not having the proper parts on site, those are just rookie mistakes. And that's, you're going to get, what I find is then your subs are going to start having higher bids to you. Everything's going to cost you more because they're padding their schedule and their job price, because they're like, you don't have your stuff together, you can't, I'll send two guys out, I don't even know if they're going to be able to do any work half the time for you, so now I got to charge you more. Whereas if everyone knows that you got your crap together and you can deliver on an effective schedule, your subs can give you more aggressive pricing, which you can then pass on and either take more profit or keep your price more competitive, depending on where your sales ability is or where the market is. So anyway, all this does have an impact. You have to see the big picture. And you don't want ever to have to explain to a client why you just lost a week because things fell apart. It just makes you look unprofessional. All right. So let's look at the big picture here. We have to take our scope of work and we have to turn it into a sequence. So those of you that do scopes of work, hopefully you're familiar with something called the Gantt chart, and that's where you link every phase. So construction is unique as opposed to some other industries, and here's especially residential remodeling. If I'm redoing a kitchen, right, I can't start painting until the sheetrock was first installed, and then when it's finished, and then it has to be sanded. So each step, right, painting has these things called predecessors, right? Something has to happen before, and then something has to happen before that. So like for instance, on most, I have to do demo first, then I do my framing changes, then we do our rough-ins, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, get our inspections, do insulation if we have to, right? Then it's the wall surface, sheetrock typically, backer board. Then we're doing paint, cabinetry. Your schedule needs to show how everything is linked, because then in your mind it should trigger to say, damn, we're doing this tomorrow, or this is next week, I need to make sure that's done to do this. And then everybody on the team can see how it lays out and the client sees how it lays out. That's how we get our clients to make all the decisions at a time, is I just show them, hey, once we start with demo, every single thing is linked all the way down the chain. So I need all these things done ahead of time. It's not like I can bounce around. I can't start painting one day just because the plumber's not finished the rough in, because we don't even have the sheetrock up. Homeowners don't realize that. They're like, well, you can just do something else. No, we can only move one stage at a time, typically, okay? Unless you're doing an indoor project and an outdoor project, that's completely different. But when you're doing one project, there's a flow, there's a sequence, and it has to go in a certain order. And you want to tie these things to your milestones, right? So you don't want to get hung up with a homeowner not approving something or not making payments. So you want to we put our payments every time there's a draw due that morning or the day before. There's a walkthrough to where, and our walkthroughs are not to point out problems. Our walkthroughs are to highlight construction things that we do that are specialty, that are above and beyond, and we show the client why we're a good company to work for. This is a detail that we provide. See that over there? Notice how we did this. See how we use these type of anchors here? That's what da 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 da. Right? That's what a walkthrough is. You're explaining to them the level of construction that they're paying for and why that you're a great company. You're not asking them to point out that that 2x4 got wet and now you're concerned that it shrunk. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's be real. That's not what a walkthrough is for. The walkthrough is also to build confidence, so that's another excuse so that you can meet with the client to make sure you're securing that payment, whether it's electronic or a physical check or cash, however you're taking it. But those are what walkthroughs are used for. Hey, we're going to show you that we did everything we said we were going to do, that you're paying for, and you're going to hand me the check because we're going to keep moving forward. So that should flow, right? And you want to have a schedule that has some pressure and rhythm, but balanced out. And here's what I'm saying. Everybody on the team has to know like the importance of being efficient every day. Because if you've ever worked in like a restaurant, you know how there's the rush, right? So, 3 o'clock, the waiters, the waitresses, the cooks, everyone's relaxed, taking it easy. Maybe a client comes here or there, but boom, 5:30 to like 8 o'clock, everybody's slammed, right? Moving, moving, grooving, not taking phone calls, not taking smoke breaks. They are just working. They're in the weeds. They're doing everything to get it done. Well, think about this. That's really how your jobs should be most days. Like you should be focused and working. And guys shouldn't be just lollygagging around, taking time to do this. You don't even recognize how much slippage is happening. You're like, well, I got 3 days for framing. I got 3 days for the cabinets. Yeah, but what if you could be getting those done in 2 days? Right now, you've just saved a day here, a day there. If you're doing 10 or 20 kitchens a year, you just saved a month. All of that starts making a big difference. So you have to get your guys into a rhythm where, like, hey, when we get to work, we're focused, right? We work like a well-oiled machine. Now, sure, they get their break for 15 minutes in the morning. They get their lunch break. You give them their 15 minutes in the afternoon. But otherwise, like, we're moving. And remember, you should reward them on days where they do really good and you get ahead of schedule. Let them go. Cut them out early. All right. Don't force them to like stay and clean the trailer. No, guys, we got everything we were supposed to do today. Get on out of here. I'll see you tomorrow. Come back ready to go. That's how you build a winning and efficient team, by rewarding them. Now, it's not going to happen often, but every other week, you should probably have a day where you guys are getting things done ahead of time. And you're also probably going to have a day where you didn't, and maybe the guy has to stay a few minutes extra, or the next day the schedule's impacted a bit. That's the reality of the life. We want field accountability without babysitting. What software? Happy Sunday. What software do you use? So, Dr. I've talked about software another night. I don't want to get too hung up right now on software because the big focus more is having the right flow. We'll come back to software, okay? Because some guys will spend months just trying to analyze this software, that software, and then by the time you're ready to buy the software, then another software has come out. What I find is that software it's not the software that you purchase. It's just making sure you have software that can do certain things. Okay, so we'll come back to that. Handling curve balls. Oh, proactive client communication. For your jobs to run smooth, you need to be the one initiating the communication, not always the client reaching out to you to get answers. Okay, when I first got started, I always felt that the only way I could talk to a client was when I had the answer. So they would call. I wouldn't answer the call half the time, right? Because I knew it was a problem on the job. If that's why they're calling me at 7:30 in the morning. Let it go to voicemail. They'd be frustrated about something pissed them off. I wouldn't want to call them back because I didn't have an answer. So then they call me again, like 2 hours later, be more frustrated. Then they'd call my office, talk to my secretary, be like, we've tried calling Mike. He's not returning our calls. We need an answer. I couldn't get the answer. So I'd be like, well, I'm not calling him back yet because I don't have an answer. I just would escalate the problem, make it worse. Then what I started learning was you take the call and you say, hey, thanks for informing me. That's very important. I'm glad that that's a concern. We're going to get on that. I don't have the final resolution at the moment. We're working on it, and I'll give you back in touch, right? The reality is you need to be in touch with the client, communicating with them. And then it got to a point where I would follow up. I started just calling them routinely 2 times a week generally. Hey, Ms. Smith, just telling you, here's where we are with your job. Wanted to remind you, we have this coming up on Thursday. It looks like right now, from what I see on the schedule, we're going to have an inspection on Tuesday. Were you going to be home for that? No? Okay. Well, I'll let you know how it plans out at the end. I started finding if I'm calling them proactively, they don't call me anymore. So whether it's you as the owner or your project manager, your lead carpenter, whoever, somebody needs to be making sure that they're having routine conversations with the customer so they don't feel like they're being left out. When you initiate, you'll get a much better, happier client, and they'll stop calling you. It's amazing how this happens. And handling curveballs. Understand how to handle curveballs, delays, change orders, subs. A lot of it comes with our thought process and how we language it to the homeowner. Most of the time, if there's a problem on a job site, we just have to let the homeowner know, hey, this is common. It's frustrating. I hate it when it happens just like you're hating it. But we're professionals. We've handled this situation before. Here are the things we're looking at to solve the problem. We'll be in touch shortly, and I'll let you know which direction we're moving and how we're going to get the problem solved, right? Just always positive, upbeat. Let them know you're in control. Let them know it's no big deal. Help calm their nervous energy and all their worries. So let's see. And at the end of the day, it's not any one tool. It's not any one meeting, and it's not any like one spreadsheet that solves the problem. It's you as a company and your team working together and implementing all these little things together. That's what really makes the difference. So like, don't get hung up and think, man, if I just start doing Gantt charts, that's going to solve everything. Well, no, having the Gantt chart's going to help, but it's not going to solve all the problems, right? You still have to communicate, and you still have to figure out a way that everyone can see the Gantt chart. And you have to make sure that the Gantt chart's accurate, or you have to be updating it, okay? So when you think of your job site, it's like an engine, right? The way it gets fueled is with good planning. That's going to let you run it well, right? You drive it and keep it in the lane with all of your little daily habits, the little things that you do. You steer it because you have a nice rhythm. This is how we get into every day. We start with this, right? Like we have, if you have in-house employees, whoever's in charge of the job should pull the guys over for the first like 5 minutes. Say, guys, here's a list. This is what we have to get done today by lunchtime, and here's what I hope to have done by the close of business today. And they stick that like on a 2x4, and then guys always can be working off of that list, right? And then usually your lead carpenter around 2 o'clock every day, he's walking around the job site and he's sketching out a couple things for what the list is for tomorrow. And that should be pen and paper for most of you guys, right? Guys like to just come up and cross it off, but that's how you get that rhythm. Every day guys come in, the laborers can know that they can trust their lead. Or if you have a project manager, he might have to be sending some sort of a schedule to your subs. That's where software is going to start coming into play. But there has to be a rhythm that you guys develop. And then you have to be able to have a way to monitor it, right? Daily job logs, a dashboard on your program that you use, something, so that you always know where things are, and you can be like, hey, we're right where we need to be. We're a day ahead, we're a day behind, we're within our range. And those of you that are bidding these jobs, when you're scheduling, you're putting in like flex days. You're always putting in buffer time because you know that there is not a single job that ever runs 100% smooth. There's something that always comes up. All right. There's a concept that I brought up before. Some of you guys are familiar with it. It's called first principle thinking. And what it means is you take a complex problem like remodeling and you boil it down to its most basic elements. And that's how you build from the ground up. So in remodeling, you would say that, look, it's not that we need to finish on time, right? The only way that we're going to be able to finish on time is we have to break it down. What is our end goal? So if it's a bathroom, what is it that needs to be done? What must come before that? What are the resources that are required? Who needs to be on site when, right? We just answer the simple questions. So are we doing demo? Perfect. Who's doing it? How long does it take? Write that on the schedule. What's next? Framing changes. Who's doing it? How long is it going to take? Perfect. Then rough-in, mechanical, right? Plumbing, electric. Who's doing it? How long is it going to take? Boom. And that's how you start building your schedule. Just like that. And then you have on the left side, it's who, when, how, right? On the right side, it's materials that we're going to need. Okay. And you start with pen and paper or just a blank sheet on your computer, and you go from there. All right. So you also want to build the job forward, as they say, with zero assumptions, piece by piece. And that's, again, what we talk about. Every step is linked like a chain. So it's kind of the way that software is built. There's these things called dependency maps, right? So in order for this to function, that has to be done. And again, we do the same in remodeling. So if our rough-ins are behind, then that's going to push our inspections, which is going to push when cabinetry can go in. So then you have to start analyzing how can we, if something's been pushed, how do we help bring it back in? Okay. So that's why these linked dependencies give you clarity, and they also show you the urgency. Because within a first week, if your demo didn't go as planned, your job's off. So if it's like for us, a 6-week kitchen remodel, for some guys, that's a kitchen remodel's taking them 2 to 3 months. But let's just say you're efficient now and you got it down to where you're getting them done in 6 weeks. If your first 3 days are off. For a guy got hurt. There was there was extensive wood rot that you weren't expecting. Whatever, something came up, and now all of a sudden you're finding, God, we're already a day or two behind. Well, you have to start looking at your schedule going, how are we going to bring this schedule back together? Because if we're a day or two behind right away, now before you know it, we're going to be a week behind, right? And when you start looking at what you're paying your crews per day times a week, how many thousands or are you starting to lose until you bring that schedule back into alignment? All right. What do you use for invoices? Extra? Yeah, so yeah, Bibs, a couple people asked that. I mean, definitely to keep it simple, you can just start off with like a Google Doc, and then you can start looking into software. Like there's a Invoice Simple app that you can pay like $4 a month, and you can do invoices really easy on that. If you set up a Stripe account, clients can pay with credit card, or so I mean, or you can go into a monthly service plan with a larger software program. You can use like a accounting software. You can do QuickBooks. So there's a lot of different ways. We'll get into some of that stuff later. All right. But all right, so remember this. In remodeling, to be successful, really the big difference between the guys that are kind of making the money every day and the guys that are struggling is there's a few guys out there that just do the very common, basic things, and they do them uncommonly well and efficient. Okay, that's all it is. We're all doing the same thing. We all have to find a client, solve a house problem. We have to acquire resources, which is labor and materials, mobilize them onto the homeowner's site, make the repair, and then leave. That's the game. Some of us are just doing that much more simpler and much more efficiently, and that's why we're able to make a lot more money than others we're all doing the same amount of work, time, energy, effort, but those that aren't efficient, it's just taking them a lot longer. It's costing them way more time, energy, and money, so they're making a way less profit. Okay, but we're all doing the same thing at the end of the day. So I spoke with you on YouTube. Oh, nice, Bibs. Okay, if you do house flips, all right. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. Yeah, I shared with you. That's how I got started on with house flipping. That's awesome. So, and we can get into your software question because I think Dr. Ron asked that as well. But that's not the main focus for tonight, but we'll come back to that. Give me a few more minutes. We're almost done here. For those of you that are doing a remodeling project of any size, and I mean like probably once you get up over like $5,000, definitely if you're doing something like 20 grand, like a full-on bath, a full-on kitchen, I would highly recommend you do some sort of a pre-construction meeting. I recommend it's in person. Your project manager, your salesperson, and a couple of your subs all meet with the homeowner on site, typically first thing in the morning or at the end of a day, so that everyone can see the job and make sure there's one big meeting where we all talk it through real quick. Typically takes about 45 minutes if you're efficient. Whoever sells the job, the salesperson and the project manager, they might be there a little bit longer, but your subs, you should be able to have them in and out within about a half hour. It's really just so that they can meet the homeowner and see the job and make sure they understand exactly what's happening where. So you can also do these virtually. They're not as efficient, right? But if you're not going to do it, at least if you're not going to do it in person on site, at least do a Zoom, and possibly if you can get access to the property. So like we work for people that have second homes, vacation, whatever, investment properties. Well, then I will go to the project usually and handle the pre-construction meeting on site. Sometimes my client might be at their other house or wherever else, you know what I mean? So you can make it work that way at the end of it, but it's not as ideal. Ideally, everybody's there on site. All this does is it transitions the project from sales over to production. And again, this is for when you're starting to grow and you have teams and you have crews, okay? And this is how you make sure that all the information gets properly transitioned. And that way the homeowner is very clear, because this happens a lot. Homeowners will speak to multiple contractors, then they'll sign up with you. They'll sign an agreement, and they actually, let's say it takes a month or two for you to get started, which is very typical. They will forget exactly what they said to you and even what's written in your contract. And you'll show up and start doing work, and they are convinced that you were going to do what they told the other guy. In their mind, they're convinced that that conversation happened with you when they never had that with you. They had it with the guy who didn't even get the job. And now what you're building isn't what they thought you were building, because they're convinced that you were building what they told the other guy, because somewhere along the line something switched. So this happens way more than people expect. And that's why you get into a lot of debates with homeowners, and you're sitting there going, no, you never said that. I clearly wrote down exactly what you said. Well, the homeowner's like, no, I said this. They just get confused because they said it to the other guy. All right. That's why you have that pre-construction meeting, because now, like, we're getting ready to do it. And we're, as far as the construction plan here, ma'am, this is what I have written down. This is what I have you telling me a month ago, 6 months ago. I'm making sure that that's still the game plan and you recall all that. Okay. Because we're getting started like in 3 days. All right. You always have a master project schedule, and it should be something that's visual that you look at and you can show to your homeowners and to your subs. And remember, always look at what is material dependent. Like, you guys that do kitchens, you know this. Like, it takes 6 weeks typically. If you're ordering your cabinets in, you're looking at like 6 weeks. So like, if a homeowner says, hey, I want to get started on my kitchen, okay, great. It's going to take 6 weeks for us just to even get the cabinets in. So let's make all those decisions now. Let me get all the dimensions, the layout done. We'll order everything, and we'll be in touch when it all arrives, and then we'll start. Now some of you guys are buying like pre-made or RTA cabinets, so you can get started sooner. But typically, the average person who's remodeling a kitchen in America, you're ordering them, and you need 6-week lead time. Make sure you understand your critical path, and whoever is your lead carpenter or project manager, they need to understand the critical path. So, all right, how you get this rhythm. The way you get the rhythm with your clients is you make sure you have frequent discussions with them. All right, very simple. Maybe 5-10 minutes here and there. Same thing with your internal crews. Just have a quick conversation every now and then. Just make sure everybody's on pace, knows what's going on. All right. At a minimum, you should be touching base with your clients weekly to 2 times a week minimum. Just when you're working with them or for them. That could just be something as simple as a voicemail, a text message, a Facebook Messenger message, a Slack message, whatever. Make sure you have your change orders. We've talked about that. And then make sure you have your closeout checklist. That's what you do at the very end of a job. Every job, when you walk through, you and the client walk through, and they sign everything, that it's done, completed, and they're happy. Had that happen with another GC, the customer forgot what they signed, had to bring out. Yeah, Jayon, it happens. The first couple of times it happened to me, I was like, I must be losing my mind. Like, this is what the homeowner told me. I wrote it down. Like, I wouldn't have made up that they wanted this and that, but the homeowner was convinced that they told me something else, and it was. Here's how we found it out. I had my office manager one time follow up with a client that we had gotten. We had like a lot of disagreements during the scope, and she followed up with her like a couple months later and said, hey, I'd just like to go over your job, because we were a little frustrated. Obviously it didn't go the way we had expected. There were definitely some issues that came up that caught us off guard. And the homeowner admitted to us, I made a mistake. I was yelling at Mike. I told him he was wrong. And what I realized was I had another contractor come out, and I had discussed all that with the other contractor, because she said about a month later after we finished, she was putting all of her construction paperwork in a folder to file, and she found the bid from the other guy. Our bids were different. We had talked about different things. I don't know if she watched the episode on HGTV one night and just changed her mind, but literally she talked to 2 contractors at minimum and had 2 different concepts. One, she told this, the other, she told that. But then when construction was going, she was convinced that it was the other way around, blamed me, and then later admitted. So that's how we learned that happens. And then you start and so where I bring this up is, I'll say to homeowners, the reason we have the pre-construction meeting is I want to make sure that what the contract that I have with you is clearly what you've wanted, because you might have talked to several contractors, and maybe throughout the process you started changing your mind and you forget what conversation you had. It happens to all of us when you talk to a bunch of people. So you can bring that up as part of the conversation. Say it happens to everybody, but this way, what is in our contract and our scope of work, that's what we're planning to do. So I want to make sure that you agree with that. All right, so that's tonight's content. Hope that helps you guys out. What questions? And you can, again, these scripts, the things that I talk about, the way I language it, these are very easy for you to generate one for your company with AI, right? Like you explain, you put into AI, hey, I'm a bath remodeler. My projects typically cost between 15 and 35,000. I'm typically on site for 4 weeks. This is the kind of things that the homeowner, I've had struggles with the homeowner making selections, telling me the faucet size, the style that they want, picking out the bathroom hand diverter, and making sure I understood, are we getting a round bowl, an elongated bowl? You know, how much is the budget for the toilet? What's the vanity, the medicine cabinet, right? There's a lot of selections. The tile, not only are you buying tile, but you're getting the tile pattern. And then you're getting, are we integrating any shelving? Are we doing a niche, to put the soap bottles? Are we doing any edge banding, like the Schluter strips, metal edging for the tile? You should have a way that you language that in your discussion with the homeowner, where you get all those selections up front, so that once construction starts, you just get to work. You're not waiting. There's nothing worse than if you sub out your tile, the tile guy's sitting around going, I still don't know the layout. I have the tile, but I don't know if the homeowner wants, an offset pattern, if they want me to run the tile vertically, horizontal. I don't know. Am I putting the niche at 6 inches, 12 inches? If these decisions haven't been made, subs don't want to be figuring that out the day of, but that's what happens on a lot of job sites, and it's terribly inefficient. You should already have a design and a plan done, so when your sub shows up, they just get to work. Yeah, exactly like you're saying last week, halfway through the job, it starts to. Yeah, and Jayon, I think you're referring to the emotions, right? When it gets complicated with the homeowners, because they all start. Everybody's excited when they sign up for a construction project. You're excited because you're like, yes, I got a job finally. I'm gonna make some money. And then the homeowner's like, yes, I found a contractor. They're gonna finally give me this bathroom that I've been dreaming of, right? But then like 2 weeks in, the homeowner's pissed because they don't have a bathroom, and it's constant mess and noise and disruption, and they come home at night and there's plastic up, and they can't park in the garage because there's all of your tools and whatever. And they can't be lazy in the morning because they have to get up and let you in, or what it is. It's all these things. So that's when they start crashing and getting frustrated, and then they hate you. And then you start hating the job because you realize you didn't sell it for enough. And now with all these homeowner issues, it's costing you more time and money. So now everybody hates everybody. But it doesn't have to be that way. Hey, Jackpot Johnny, I got a good crowd tonight. Yeah, 100%. And I explained to homeowners, this is my theory. I let homeowners know you're human, right? And I would joke with them, you're human, you've had problems, right? Like you've tried to get to work one day and there was an accident, right? Somebody cut off the school bus and the school bus veered and whatever. There's a crash. The weather was bad. And so now everyone's running late. The same thing happens in remodeling. There is going to be something that causes the job, the process, to have some sort of a hiccup at some point. Materials are going to be defective. We thought we had everything. We miscounted. There was a shortage. Somebody makes a mistake. Everybody's human. Nobody's perfect. And the key is, Mr. and Ms. Smith, just like when you are in traffic and you're trying to get to work and there's a delay, it's not like you never get to work and you lose your job and the whole thing goes to shit. Say with us, yes, there might be a delay, but don't worry, we're going to get the project back on track and we're going to finish it and you're going to have a finished project. But there are days where it's like there's a traffic jam and it's, not going to go as planned. And while it's frustrating, it's normal and it happens to everyone. There is not a remodeler alive that hasn't had issues come up on a job site. And then if they're religious, you can joke with them. There's only one perfect person as far as the world ever knows, and everybody wanted to kill him. The story of Jesus. So like, people think they want perfection, but then when they're met with it, they don't want it at all. They hate it. So anyhow, um, but yeah, more communication is definitely the plan. Um, so when you guys are talking about schedules and software, so Builder Trend is one that is excellent for remodeling, but it's expensive. And when I say that, people get frustrated, like, well, it's expensive. And here's what I mean. There's definitely a cost because it does a lot of things. And if you aren't selling your projects for a high enough profit margin, then the I think it's like $400 a month now, that can get costly. So there are less expensive ways to get the same tasks accomplished. At a bare minimum, you do want some sort of nice invoicing system at some point, especially if you're running multiple jobs. So for the longest time, QuickBooks, we use QuickBooks. Some people don't like QuickBooks because over the years it's gotten a little more pricey. Sure, there's other alternatives out there. And at the end of the day, if you're trying to do multiple jobs at once, you're going to want something that allows you to invoice people electronically and accept payments electronically, be it ACH, where they literally just pay you from like a checking or savings accounts, or they just charge to a credit card. Okay. So like I said, there's something called Invoice Simple. I mean, it's like $4 a month, and that will allow you to invoice customers and accept payment, all done electronically. You get a read receipt. So you email the invoice to the customer. It shows you that they've received it into their inbox. Then it'll show you that it's been opened, right? And then you get notification when they've decided to accept and pay you if they pay electronically. Now, sometimes they want to just write you a check. I don't recommend having people mail you checks. I recommend you, the salesperson, the project manager, physically collecting the check. There's nothing worse than, and like in my area, the mail service is absolutely terrible. If you saw the type of person that's being hired to deliver the mail nowadays, it's like they must not be paying well, because the person, my mail gets delivered sometimes at 10 o'clock at night. I mean, let's think about this. Right? What is that mail person doing? It's like a second job all of a sudden to deliver mail now. For the longest time I've been alive, I never experienced having mail delivered at nighttime. But now in my area, mailman doesn't wear a uniform. I don't even know who the mail person. All I know is someone comes up on my porch sometimes late at night and drops off letters. Like, what is going on? So I don't trust the mail. I wouldn't recommend that to be your solution if possible. All right, what else? Any other? So I talk about sometimes the Rebel program. I'll give you that. Like, so I have a group where it's for professional remodelers or people achieving and striving to be professional, where we get into a lot more of the details and we actually go over, and I give you the framework, the templates, you get the PDFs, they're already done. So that kind of stuff is available for those of you that are looking for that. And that's called the Remodel Rebel program. So like, for an example, with all of what we talked about today, like we showed like what the critical path really looks like for most projects, how, the best way to coordinate the resources, to build the schedule, the game plan, how you monitor the product, execute the plan. What else? We give you the framework, show you the Gantt charts, the different softwares that you can use. What else? Get into a little bit more about how you're making sure you're using AI to get this done. Like, Here's an example of what you can do with AI. You just have it write a friendly weekly project update email for a kitchen remodel that you're working on, right? So that email in a very strategic format, it covers the progress that's been made. Then you discuss what is scheduled for the upcoming week. If there was any delays or issues, you make a quick note about those. Then you inform the client when the next payment and walkthrough is tentatively expected. And that's it. That's a nice weekly email. So for those of you that have like somebody helping out in the office, that is something that they could do every Monday morning. They look at the progress of all the jobs and they send out an update to all the clients in a nice email, or they could do it Tuesday, whatever. For those that like text messages, you create a very short, sweet, maybe you send that on Thursdays to give clients a heads up for what's coming the following week. Hey, Mr. and Ms. Smith, as you know, we finished the rough-ins today. So on Monday, we are starting sheetrock, or next week we're starting sheetrock. Just a quick message. So these are like little things that you can do to boost the customer's confidence in you as a company, that you have your stuff together. And especially for the homeowners that work, if they're not on site a lot, make sure you have a way to generate field reports. So some sort of a daily log, whether that's done digitally or on pen and paper and left on site. That's up to you. I recommend digital, but what else? Make sure you have change orders, change order process. Punch list. I would recommend you don't use the word punch list or get away from punch lists. All of your walkthroughs are educational purposes. Mr. and Ms. Smith, we're going to walk through and we're going to go over all the things that we've done. If you're a professional, you've already corrected all of the issues and you let the homeowner, say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we've done it this way. And the final walkthrough, I can ask the homeowner, Mr. and Ms. Smith, now, like, we don't wait till then. I'll be honest. If the guys paint on Thursday, I'll say, Mr. and Ms. Smith, our guys did an amazing job. All the painting got done today. So when you walk through the house tonight, just take a look around, and let me know how amazing that paint job is, right? Make sure it's exactly, just like you envision it, and tell me how great it is tomorrow. That's how I'll prep that. I don't ask them to pick it apart on purpose. So that's not necessary. And then you, as the professional, should be looking through and identifying any issues. Like, you should be seeing where there's nail pops. You should be seeing where the dry sheetrocker, it happens. The guy misses a spot and didn't sand it properly. So usually if you take a halogen light and shine it on the wall or ceiling right after it's been primed, you can usually see if some sheetrock sanding was skipped, and that can be pointed up real quick so that the homeowner's not calling you on it. I mean, you should be, what I'm saying is, your lead carpenter, you guys should be doing the punch list, not the homeowner. Yeah. You don't want to you don't want to invite the homeowner to find problems, because then they feel like it's their job and they're going to nitpick. Remember, most parts of the country, I think this applies. I know it does on the East Coast in Maryland. I can analyze finished work from 6 foot. So I can have the client, I explain to them, typically they want to stand in the middle of the room and they just want to look around. And is anything jump out at them that makes them uncomfortable, or is everything very pleasing? Does it fall in line with what they were expecting? And typically you try to have a preemptive discussion with the homeowner where you do that with them. You look around, say, I want you to look up there. You notice see how that crown molding came together over there? And look how sharp those cabinets, see how we put that light bar under there, boom, boom, boom. And then you say, look, when you and your husband are home tonight, I want you to stand around and just look through the room and, relish and say, man, this is so great. We love our new kitchen. And if they see something that concerns them, they'll bring it up to you, typically. Okay. So, coordination with subs is always tricky. Some subs are going to be more organized than you are. Some are not. at the end of the day, the goal is to find the ones that are organized. And this has been my experience. The subs that cost more are worth it because I don't typically have to have them come back, especially plumbing. Plumbing is an issue over the years that I have learned, and I would say the hard way, that plumbing mistakes get very costly. Electric, most electricians are fairly decent, and it's what I'm saying is, if even any carpenter can have an outlet tester, right, and make sure that it's wired properly, and it's very simple to look at. For the most part, you can analyze and say, it looks like the electric was put in properly, right? The receptacles aren't loose, they're solid. The switch plate covers were put on good. The switches aren't cracked, they work. Things like that. Now, obviously, I can't tell that all the wiring's tight at that point, but where I'm going with this is, when it comes to plumbers, you want to make sure you're working with a good plumber, because plumbing leaks will cost you. And I can't tell you if Jay, what's it, Jay? Who's the rehabber? Hold on. Yeah, Bibbs, if you're here, I had this happen to me. So it was probably my second or third house that I was rehabbing. I was working with another gentleman. We partnered on it, and he had selected the main plumber, and I was overseeing the project. And I had what happened was, so we hired a plumber, and then he decided to sub out some of the work. He subbed out the bathroom on the first floor, to put in all the rough plumbing, for the shower diverter and all that stuff. So here's what happened. The guy had a leak, and he went and found a Maxwell House aluminum or tin coffee can, literally the old fashioned, and he stuck it there under where it was dripping from the connection behind the wall. So none of us knew it was leaking, right? But he knew it was leaking, and he placed this cup there. Now, apparently, like the next day, the sheetrockers came in, they put the sheetrock and the backer board up. We didn't catch it, that this metal can was there catching the leak. And nobody knew until a month later, the sheetrock and the floor below started having water spots, and we couldn't figure out once we went, and we had to go in through a bedroom closet, open up the wall, because now the shower wall's been tiled, and the homeowner's standing there, and they see that the guy put a tin can there to catch the drip. Like, that's the kind of shit that the low end subcontractors will do, like crazy. So I just recommend you work with better subs. It's not worth it at the end of the day. Yeah, I don't know what I honestly, to this day, I don't know if the plumbing subcontractor forgot that the joint, I believe it was a sweated joint, and I think he knew it was leaking. That's all I can say. And for whatever reason, it never got fixed. Whether he forgot, and what could have also happened is, so remember, we didn't have the contract with that guy. Our sub that we had the contract with subbed out this one shower for some reason. I don't know why. I wasn't a part of those decisions. Like, we had multiple houses we were working on, and this is the kind of crap that sometimes happens when you don't have good systems and good control. I was new. It was only like my second or third house that I was mad at doing the rehab with. But that's what happened, right? And it was a disaster. It cost us like thousands of dollars to come back and fix all of it. Whereas, you see what I'm saying? Like, it was a $100 mistake that ended up being very costly and really hurt the reputation for all of us, because the homeowner's like, you guys knew this was leaking. Somebody knew it was leaking. They put a fucking can there to catch it. So, yeah. But it happens. I mean, that house had like 3 bathrooms, so I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying sometimes shit happens. You just got a lot going on. And there's times where who knows what assumptions were made. Maybe we thought it was good. Maybe we thought it wasn't. I don't know. All right. Anybody else got any questions? Anything I can help you with? Let me see. Yeah, you just have to go in and make it right for the homeowner. I will say this, when the homeowner, in that situation, we had a hard time building the trust back up with the homeowner. They really felt like we shafted them. And I could understand why they thought that. Even though, like, most of us didn't even know that there was a problem because there was just a broken chain of communication. And the last thing you want to try to explain to a homeowner is, well, yeah, we hired a plumber. The plumber that we hired, he went and hired another guy to come do this part, right? Because now it looks like we don't even know what's going on, and we didn't, you know. It was, you know. So over time, I've just learned you work with. So in our agreements now, like if you're our sub, you are not then subbing to another sub. Okay, like that, just we don't do that game anymore. But that was the way we learned that lesson. Exactly, live and learn. So, and I know that back then on that second or third project, I'm most certain that it was a bit of a price issue. I am sure that we were tempted to choose the plumber that we chose, probably somewhat because of price. Okay, because we were still learning that, you just don't know until you end up knowing that you're better off paying the more seasoned professional that's going to cost you more upfront, but it will be cheaper in the long run because it gets done right the first time. And like I said, plumbing issues, they can be disastrous. So, yeah, Dead Sledded, nice. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Hope we can help you. Yep. Yeah, so if anybody else has any questions about managing the job site, like I said, I talk a lot about kitchens because, in my experience, a lot of guys want to be kitchen remodelers. That's one thing they want to do. A lot of people deem that as like good money in kitchens, and there is. But also, a lot of guys aren't making money doing kitchens. They might be signing $85,000 contracts or $60,000 jobs, and they like it because, like, I got work for like 2 months now. But at the end of the day, they're just getting paid like their hourly wage to do the work. They're not making any profit on the job because it's taking them too long to execute. Because kitchens, you're constantly shifting gears, right? It's a lot going on in a small space, just like bathrooms. And when we first started kitchens, it was taking us more like, I don't know, 2.5 months to do a kitchen. Once we got the process down to where we could get them knocked out more like 6 weeks, that made a huge difference. And it may feel rushed to you right now. And what I'm referring to is a full on, not just a pull and replace. Okay, that's a whole different ballgame. If you're just coming in and the homeowner's keeping the exact same layout for the most part, and you're not moving mechanicals like the drain and the supply lines for the sink and the fuel for the stove, if none of that's being relocated, then yeah, you can get kitchens done like that. Okay, that's a whole different ballgame. I'm referring to kitchens where you're removing everything: ceiling, surface, wall surface, flooring, cabinets or appliances, and then you're restructuring, moving the whole flow, the triangles changing. Sometimes the sink location stays where it is, especially if it was in front of a window, but we're shifting other things, or we're going from a single bowl to a double bowl, or we're upgrading all the plumbing because the house is like 60 years old. We're switching over to a new supply lines, new drain lines, whatever. But when you start getting into that kind of work, 6 weeks is a tight timeline. Things really have to be moving and organized to get in and get out quickly like that. And every extra day that you have a guy or two on site is costing you time and money. And there's two ways to look at it, because not only is it, so some of you guys like, yeah, but I don't pay my guys a lot of money, or it's just me, so I don't mind waiting a day hanging out on site, waiting for the inspector to do this or do that. So think about this. There's this thing called opportunity cost. So if you're behind on a job, that is preventing you from making progress on another job, right? If you're back, if your whole crew is at like James Street fixing that house, and now you're fixing problems, so you're 2 or 3 days behind, well, then that same crew can't be over on Milton Street now, moving forward on that job. So there's this thing called opportunity cost, and you're getting hit double whammy. And here's what I'm saying. The job's run over, so now it's costing you more money to send the guys to the job that's in progress. So you're losing money there, and they should have been working on the next job, bringing in new revenue, and they're not. So now you've essentially lost on two ends. It's almost impossible to make that back up throughout the course of a year. So that's the opportunity cost of not having a good schedule. All right, so we got two questions. Parker, tips on starting. Yeah, so Parker, when I was in like high school, college, I did painting. Pretty simple, in my opinion. You just need a couple ladders. Go over to Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore, set up an account. Tell them you're here, you're starting, you want to be a painter, or you are a professional painter. They'll usually give you a t-shirt or two or a hat. So at least you have something. If you don't even have your own, they'll give you theirs. And then you just show up, start bidding. I would recommend either like student painters. These guys crush it. They mainly do exterior painting, and they just do it in the summertime. So if you're younger, you could do that, and you could compete with them. Otherwise, you can start just doing interior painting, doing living rooms, bathrooms, and just get comfortable doing smaller projects and then start bidding whole house jobs. So that would be my suggestion there. Jay Allen, how do you bid plumbing portion of scope? All right, so here's how we do plumbing. Over the years, my plumber, I've gotten to a good relationship with him, and I know about what it's going to cost to redo the plumbing for the typical bathroom, right? I'm going to throw out a number, and don't hold me to the number. Just a number is a number right now. But let's say you're talking a 3-piece bath. So it's a bathtub and shower combo, right? There's a toilet and there's a vanity. And let's say I want the plumber to redo, all the fixtures. We want new drains, at least traps. We're probably going to keep the main stack for both the vent, and we're going to keep the main stack for the drain. So we're just going to do the branch piece of the plumbing. That's all going to be new, okay? So the horizontal pipe that runs to the toilet, the horizontal pipe that's running to the sink, and the horizontal pipe that's running to the tub. So let's just throw out a number. All right, so he's going to do all the roughing. We're going to get new supply lines, again, coming to the main branch of the supply lines. We'll probably keep the same. And oftentimes we'll just do the stub out that we call it. That'll be new. So we're getting shut-off valves, new diverters, new faucet, right? New toilet. I often would say, let's just say that's $2,300. That's setting everything, right? Roughing it in. Our plumber is going to install the shower diverter, set up the tub drain, spout overflow. They're going to install the faucet, connect the bowl. Like, we typically will get the bowl from who we're getting our countertop from. So we have the countertop and the bowl, but our plumber is making the connections. And then our plumber likes to supply the toilets. So what I try to do with a lot of homeowners is have them make a selection from the supply house that our plumber gets things from. And what we found over the years is it's just easier to let the plumber deal with the toilet altogether. So that's one thing that we do that might be a little bit different. We don't buy our home toilets from like Home Depots and Lowe's. So the plumber can do all that. And so then they come and set all those fixtures. And typically, so I'll factor in let's say $2,300. Now, I am going to mark that up to the homeowner. And that number is going to vary based off of what my overhead, my profit is, and where I want the final number of the job to be. So you have to figure out your thing for how that's going to work if you're the GC, right? Some guys are doubling it. Boom. You get charged, if they're being charged 23, they're charging the customer 46, right? So that's a simple way to do it. Other guys are making more calculations, adding more factors in. So I'd recommend that, you have to look at what your overhead, your costs are, what percentages, what markup you want to make. In this situation, are you the plumber or are you the GC, Jay Allen? One GC formed, and he was adding the percentage to plumbers. Yeah, I mean, if you're a general contractor and you're managing, yeah, you're the plumber. Yeah. So a GC should be marking up your costs to the homeowner. Whatever so how do I explain this? The price that you're charging a general contractor shouldn't typically be the street value of that plumbing work, right? You should be charging because here's the thing, and if I'm following your situation accurately, the general contractor found the job for you. So there was no selling on your part. You didn't have to pay for a lead. You didn't have to meet with the homeowner, come up with you got the job. The GC calls you're getting the job through the GC. So there's a price that you give to the GC that should be different than what the street rate is retail wise. And then also the GC is going to handle all the communications, in my opinion. That's how we do it. Our homeowner's not contacting the plumber directly for any issues. Now, you as the plumber are going to still have to warranty the work if there's an issue, but the homeowner's calling me as the GC. So that's why your price can be a little bit less. Absolutely, just like you let the customer know it was bid. Look, there's this thing in contracting. Some guys are big on that transparency. There's guys that do cost plus. Like they just let the homeowner know straight up, hey, we charge 10% for this, 15% for that. We mark up every single thing that we do. That's the way, because there's a management fee, there's our overhead and profit fee. So every GC runs their business a little bit differently. I can't say that one way is right or wrong, because people will really defend the way that they do it at the end of the day. And I've seen it work for both people. The largest companies tend to just have fixed price, like they just charge a price. That's just what I've noticed over time. But there's a lot of companies that have very transparent pricing. And when you go that route, you end up selling that as a benefit and feature. And so you end up attracting homeowners that like that as a benefit and a feature. And so, whereas I know a lot of homeowners, they don't give a crap. They just want to know, Mike, how much is it going to cost to redo my bathroom? How long is it going to take? When can you get started? And when will you be finished? Right? So you have to look at it from that perspective. It's the type of client that you're going to be attracting. Whereas some homeowners, that's not my market. I'm not trying to find the homeowner that wants a line item for every single little detail. I don't have the time or patience. I'm not interested. I don't bid my jobs that way. I prefer to just find a price that I believe is fair for the work that we're doing, and that's how much it costs to do it. And because I might be under on electric and I might be over on plumbing, but at the end of the day, it balances out. So to me, I like that style of running a remodeling business personally, but some guys don't. Yeah. And typically this helps too. If you're the plumber and a homeowner ever asks you, this, you always refer everything right back to the GC. If a plumber's on a job and the homeowner goes, hey, how much is it going to cost if we make this change or do that? You're like, I don't know. You have to talk to Bill. This is Bill's job. I work for Bill, right? That keeps it very simple and straight and keeps it less messy. The homeowner, in my opinion, if you're the sub, the plumber, the electrician, you don't have to get into your pricing, you know. And some homeowners are gonna, there are some homeowners that just, it's their nature to always try to cut people out, and they're gonna just do nothing but want to try to get you to come work for them without the general contractor. And as a sub, I would tell you, like, you have to choose the type of people that you want to deal with down the road. A lot of our subs just let the homeowner know straight up, hey, we any work, if the way that the connection was made from homeowner to the sub was through the GC, then that's how the relationship stays for eternity. Does that make sense? Hey, Mr. Smith, that's awesome that you love our work. You call Mike anytime you want us to come out and do anything. But Mike's the connection. He's the go-to for this relationship. We found that level. Now, our plumber is going to have other, like if you, Jay Allen, if you're a plumber, you're going to be able to sell jobs on your own. But if it's with that specific homeowner and the way that you met the homeowner was through us, then the way we look at it is, hey, just honor that relationship for the end of time. That refer them back to us, and we will refer you back in, right? Like, but you're free to find other clients on your own that have nothing to do with us. And by you reinforcing that with the homeowner, it prevents that weird stickiness that the homeowner, because there's a lot of shady homeowners that are always, I don't know how to explain it. They're just always trying to get a deal, right? Like they want to cut, because next thing they're going to want to do, once they cut the GC out, then they're going to want to cut you and getting your materials out. They're going to be like, hey, so you get your stuff at a plumbing supply house. All right, cool. How about this? You take me to this plumbing supply house. I'll buy all the materials, then you install it. You know, they're always trying to find the next way to cut something out. So it's just not worth it in the long run. Yeah, it can. Um, I look at the world like this. I look at the world that there's more than enough opportunity for everyone, and I want to value and trust and be my word. So I have been a sub at times for someone else, and if the homeowner was to ever call me up, like even like I get it, you'd be like, hey, Miss Smith, how did we meet again? Oh, that's right, I did that work, and Joey was the contractor. Miss Smith, we'd love to help you out. You got to call Joey. And like, it's at the end of the day, all you have is your reputation, and that precedes itself. And if everybody knows that you honor your relationships, you honor your word, you're fair to the GCs that you work with, you're fair to the clients, it all works out. At the end of the day, it'll work out. Even though sometimes you're like, man, I could really use that job. It's not worth it to me at the end of the day to break that trust with the parties involved, because it's tempting. I hear you. So, but that's just been my experience. Now, at the same time, have a conversation with the GC. Call them up and say, hey, Joey, the Joneses, the ones that we did that job for 3 years ago or 6 months ago, they just called me up. They want to try to hire me direct. I told them they need to call you. Some GCs are going to turn it right back around on you and say, Jay Allen, you just call them. I'm not interested. And then the trust is still there. And then now you have the grace to say, yeah, go take it. You see what I'm saying? It just works better for everyone that way, in my opinion. And I'm probably in the minority when I think that way, but that's how I always look at it. How do I want it to be? And I'm also cognizant of what's the homeowner trying to do. Once I recognize that the homeowner is trying to cut someone out, I don't want to be on any part of that equation with that homeowner where they're trying to cut someone out of the deal, right? Because it just creates a bad footing from the get-go, right? And you want to work with people that aren't always trying to cut someone out. That's how I look at it. Because there's going to come a point where they want to cut you out. If they're willing, you know what I'm saying? Where does it stop? They're cutting this guy out. Next thing, they're cutting you out. Next thing, here's what's going to happen. The homeowner that wants to hire you without the GC, the next thing they're going to do is they're going to try to hire your helper without you, right? Like, it just never ends. So that happens a lot too. Yeah, just communicate up front with everybody. You always thank them. You never tell them that they're wrong. Hey, Mr. and Miss Smith, that's awesome. Oh, we love working for you as well. Yeah, that was a great job. That bathroom, you still love it? Oh, yeah, it turned out really good. Tell you what, here's how all this works. We'd love to work for you again. You call Joey, because he was the GC on that job, and then we'll go from there. Or you call him, whatever. You just have that conversation and then go from there. But I've had just as many customers try to take a sub and hire under the table, as they say, or behind our back. I've had tons of homeowners want to hire our crew on the side under the table for cash, right? They want to pay them and I say to our crew all the time, I say, look, it's going to be tempting when that homeowner comes up to you on Friday at 2 and says, hey, Timmy, you've been doing a great job. You work really hard for Mike. Look at this great work you do. My wife and I, we have this other house, and we would love to have somebody like you work for it. And I let them know they're coming to you because they think you're a sucker. They think you're going to go work for them for an hourly wage of like $25 an hour. And I said, you have to understand that if they're willing to cheat us to get you, they're going to be willing to cheat you at a certain point down the road. And once people start understanding that people with that mentality, then most of the time your crew is going to be less likely and less inclined to want to even work for the homeowner that's trying to pull that kind of a game. But it happens a lot. And one time I found out by mistake, this was so funny. We were remodeling a house about a half hour away, and it just so happened that a good friend of mine lived next door. I didn't tell anyone that my good friend lived next door. I just kept my mouth shut. We did the work. The homeowners that we were working for didn't really know that I was good friends with their neighbor. Their properties were like about acre lots. They weren't like right next to each other. And I was going to a cookout with my buddy one day, and I saw one of our vans in the guy's driveway on a Saturday. So then I knew, like, oh, one of my guys is now moonlighting for our customers. Isn't that nice? So, it's the reality of the world. So then, of course, Monday morning, we have a nice conversation, and we just don't work for that homeowner in the future. But we just have a good, that employee. I don't recall if he stayed with us or not. That was a while ago. But that kind of stuff happens. I was referring to an emergency. Yeah, I don't know. Even emergencies, it all comes back to the relationship that the GC has and what their scope of work. So like for us as a GC, we advertise ourselves as a one-call contractor for the homeowner. Hey, if you ever need a plumbing issue, electrical issue, HVAC, roofing, siding, gutters, whatever, you just give us a call. We'll take care of all the headaches for you. So that's how we market ourselves and advertise. Your GC may not do that. I don't know. It really just depends on that situation. So, all right. Well, guys, I appreciate y'all being here. I think we're going to wrap up the call for tonight. Unless you have any specific, anything I missed, anything I didn't understand properly, let me know. Trying to go through the questions here. As you get older, it gets a little hard. I tell you that the way TikTok puts in these questions, the font is super small. So, and it, depending on what my background is, it's always in white text. So I have to be careful. Like if I wear a white t-shirt, I can't read, obviously. All right. But I think I've addressed everything that's come up. If you're new, if you haven't been here before, if you have any questions about remodeling, pop it in. Otherwise, I think we're going to bounce for tonight. So, Jay Allen, appreciate you being here. Thanks a lot. Hopefully I'm helping. If you need any specific questions, but you're always free to reach out as well if I'm not addressing it properly here. But plumbing is definitely a good niche to be in. Should be very successful. Yeah. Let me just check over on YouTube. I don't see any questions over there. All right. Yeah, so for you guys, if you don't have a copy, if you need a copy of the Get Paid to Estimate book, you can get that for free. That gets you into the ecosystem. Then you get the invite. It'll get you over into the Remodelers Helping Remodelers, which is a free group on Facebook. And then from there, we have like specialty groups where it's a paid option to get into. You just get more group coaching, more benefits. But anyway, if nothing else, make sure you get over to the Get Paid to Estimate.com and get a copy of the book. That'll get you an invite into the Facebook group. And otherwise, just TikTok has probably been the best lately for lives. I might start doing some in Facebook, but TikTok just works really good. So I've been real happy with that. All right. Well, I appreciate you all being here. Jayon, for sure. Thanks again. You have an amazing night. I don't know who else is on at the moment. Don't see any other questions coming up. So we're going to call it a night. All right, guys. Take care.